On a frigid winter night, Bo Ram's car suddenly broke down on the road. She wanted to call someone to fix it, but little did she expect that, at that moment, a deranged man would approach her. After hours of torturing and mutilating her, Bo Ram's battered body, covered in wounds, was stuffed into a plastic bag. Then he selected a handy kitchen knife. Kyung-chun sat down in front of Bo Ram and muttered something that sent a chill through her entire body. He remarked that her skin was so soft it would surely tear apart easily. She pleaded with him to spare her life, revealing that she was pregnant and that she was set to have her wedding the following month. Kyung-chun listened patiently to her words, but in the very next moment, he raised the knife and brought it down with a decisive slash. He began dismembering Bo Ram's still-living body, piece by piece. As he was carving her apart, her wedding ring slipped from her finger and fell into a nearby sewer grate. Hearing the faint clink, Kyung-chun abruptly stood up and glanced around, but seeing nothing, he returned to his gruesome task. After a while, the water in the sewer ran red with fresh blood. Early the next morning, a group of children were playing by the riverbank when they found a black plastic bag. As soon as they opened it, one of the boys froze in fear. Inside was half an ear. Upon receiving the report, the police swiftly deployed hundreds of officers to search the surrounding areas. That same night, they recovered the victim's head from the river. It didn't take long to identify her as Bo Ram. It turned out her father was a retired captain of the crime prevention unit, and her fiancé was a current member of the same team. Faced with this sudden, tragic news, both men were consumed by sorrow. They tormented themselves with guilt for not protecting the woman they cherished. Her fiancé Soo-hyun was so devastated that he immediately requested a 2-week leave from his supervisor, but it wasn't to unwind. Soo-hyun intended to avenge his fiancée in his own way. Soo-hyun borrowed a tracking device from a colleague, while Bo Ram's father, leveraging his connections at the police station, provided Soo-hyun with the identities of 4 suspects, all of whom had faced similar accusations. Soo-hyun pinned the suspects' identifying information to the wall, determined to take revenge on each one in turn. Then, he tied him up, forced him to look at photos of the crime scene, and interrogated him about the case. The suspect shook his head in confusion, completely unaware of why he was being beaten like this. Terrified to the point of nearly wetting himself, the suspect clearly didn't have the nerve to commit murder. But before leaving, Soo-hyun still grabbed a metal object and struck the suspect's sensitive area, crushing the tool he might have used to harm others. The next day, Soo-hyun deliberately rammed his car into a delivery worker standing on the road. Afterward, Soo-hyun returned home and tore down the portrait of suspect number 2 from the wall, a sign that he had concluded this suspect wasn't the real culprit either. Next up was suspect number 3, Kyung-chun, who turned out to be the true perpetrator of the crime. Kyung-chun was a professional bus driver. In recent days, Soo-hyun had been hunting for the real killer, unaware that Kyung-chun, long unable to bear his loneliness, was preparing to strike again. Kyung-chun had a pattern. He always targeted single women who were alone at midnight. Kyung-chun would use the excuse of being on the same route to invite his victim onto the bus before carrying out his vile acts. At first, didn't believe such a coincidence could happen, but seeing how late it was, and assuming no other vehicles would pass by, she relented. Plus, the fact that Kyung-chun was driving a bus meant for elementary school children put her at ease. Gathering her courage, she stepped onto Kyung-chun's bus. While driving, Kyung-chun reached back with his right hand, fumbling behind the seat until he found an iron pipe. He abruptly stopped the bus and pulled the handbrake. Then, turning to face the girl, he asked if it was her first time seeing this little toy. Without waiting for a reply, he began relentlessly striking her with the pipe. Afterward, Kyung-chun took her to his private slaughterhouse. The girl screamed in terror non-stop, but then the guillotine suddenly dropped, slicing her body in 2. After committing the murder, Kyung-chun casually used the women's cosmetics on the vanity table. He gazed at his fairly firm skin in the mirror, feeling deeply satisfied with himself. Then he picked up a guitar and strummed a few soothing melodies. It was hard hard to imagine that such an artist could actually be a depraved killer. Early the next morning, Soo-hun located Kyung-chun's small wooden house. Taking advantage of no one being home, Soo-hun searched the place meticulously, not even sparing the bed. His attention was drawn to a locked safe. He pried it open and found it filled with women's personal belongings, proof that Kyung-chun was indeed a pervert. But when he turned the safe upside down, he found none of Bo-ram's items. Thinking he might have targeted the wrong person again, he suddenly noticed a hidden door at the back. He stepped aside, cautiously opened it, and behind it lay the slaughterhouse, the very place where Kyung-chun killed and dismembered his victims. As soon as Soo-hyun entered, he saw the wedding ring that Bo-ram dropped into the sewer. He immediately burst into tears like a child. He was sure that the murderer who killed Bo-ram was Kyung-chun. At this time, Kyung-chun was driving the bus to take the students home. He glanced at the rearview mirror. The beautiful girl with no acne on her face was his next prey. The girl was tied up and thrown into a hole. Kyung-chun was on one side holding a wooden stick and lifting her skirt. Her long and bright white legs made Kyung-chun extremely excited. He jumped straight into the hole regardless of the girl's cries and moans. Kyung-chun tore her clothes apart. Just as he was about to do something bad, he heard a man's voice. Kyung-chun was so scared that he immediately stopped what he was doing. He picked up the sickle on the ground and walked out. The moment the lights were turned on, Kyung-chun only saw a person standing in front of the door. He immediately lost his guard and was not worried at all. Soo-hyun's eyes blazed with fury and a thirst for vengeance. Kyung-chun even taunted him, asking if he was a cop, but Soo-hyun didn't dignify the question with a response. This method of revenge felt too merciful for a monster like Kyung-chun. Instead, Soo-hyun shoved a tracking device into Kyung-chun's mouth and stomped on his arm. When Kyung-chun came to, the storage shed was empty. On his chest lay a letter stuffed with cash. Kyung-chun assumed his opponent was just as deranged as he was, unaware that every move he made was being watched by Soo-hyun. The next day, Kyung-chun took the money to a clinic for a checkup. There, a young and beautiful nurse unintentionally enraged him. He locked her inside the pharmacy room and began to undress her. Soo-hyun warned him that this was only the beginning. With a knife, Soo-hyun sliced through the tendons in Kyung-chun's leg, then meticulously bandaged the wound before tossing him into a parking lot. However, instead of instilling fear, Soo-hyun's brutal revenge only ignited Kyung-chun's perverse nature further. Kyung-chun vowed to fight Soo-hyun to the death. Soo-hyun paid no attention to the insults blaring from the map surveillance camera. Shortly after, he received a call from Bo-ram's father. It turned out the police were growing suspicious of their private investigation into the case. Bo-ram's father urged him to stop immediately, but Soo-hyun firmly refused. Now, his sole focus was making the true culprit pay with blood. What Soo-hyun didn't realize, however, was that his stubbornness would soon bring disaster upon his family. Meanwhile, Kyung-chun was heading to meet his friend Tae-zoo, a man even more depraved than Kyung-chun himself. Tae-zoo wasn't just a killer, he took pleasure in eating his victim's flesh. Upon hearing about Kyung-chun's unfortunate encounter, Tae-zoo instantly deduced that Soo-hyun must be a relative of one of their victims. He saw Soo-hyun as a monster like them, someone who secretly relished the thrill of the hunt just as they did. Soo-hyun could no longer tolerate their slanderous words. That night, he slipped into their hideout and caught Tae-zoo in the act of committing a murder. The moment their eyes met, Soo-hyun and Tae-zoo clashed in a fierce brawl. Though Tae-zoo towered over him and wielded a knife, he was no match for Soo-hyun's skill. Within minutes, Soo-hyun overpowered him, snapping Tae-zoo's wrist with a brutal strike. Using a chain, Soo-hyun Soo-hyun bound him tightly, determined to deal with him on his own terms. But just as he raised his dagger, Kyung-chun appeared across the room, gun in hand. Soo-hyun ducked low, evading the hail of bullets. With uncanny agility, with a burst of extraordinary strength, he leapt from the second floor. Landing below, he grabbed a makeshift weapon, only to narrowly avoid a sneak attack from Tae-zoo. Unfazed, Soo-hyun unleashed another barrage of punches on Tae-zoo, then seized a steel pipe and hammered it relentlessly into his head. At that moment, Soo-hyun caught Kyung-chun's shadow flickering on the staircase. He pulled a box of fishhooks from his pocket and scattered them across the floor before slipping into a nearby room to hide. Spotting Soo-hyun's figure, Kyung-chun rushed after him. The moment he stepped inside, his feet landed on the hooks and he howled in unbearable pain. Seizing the chance, Soo-hyun charged at him. Just as Kyung-chun raised his gun to fire, Soo-hyun delivered a swift kick to his face. Straddling Kyung-chun, Soo-hyun rained blows with the steel pipe onto his head. The next day, police discovered the scene and rushed the two gravely injured suspects to the hospital. There, Soo-hyun made a critical mistake. While in the hospital room with a colleague, he mentioned the tracking device, unaware that Kyung-chun, pretending to be unconscious, overheard every word. Later, Soo-hyun secretly arranged for Kyung-chun's release from the hospital once more. Far from being scared, Kyung-chun flashed a twisted smile. He grabbed a handful of laxatives and swallowed them all. After a trip to the bathroom, the tracking capsule appeared in his hand. Kyung-chun was a depraved killer, but he had met someone even more unhinged. Soo-hyun, a criminal investigator. Soo-hyun didn't just torture him, he had secretly planted a tracking device inside Kyung-chun's body, allowing him to monitor Kyung-chun's location at all times and plunge him into despair. But now, Kyung-chun has figured it all out. In a frenzy, he attacked a taxi driver, then stuffed the tracking device into the driver's stomach. Following the signal, Soo-hyun tracked it to a restroom. Upon seeing the driver's condition, Soo-hyun realized Kyung-chun had slipped out of his control. Things were spiraling out of Soo-hyun's control. Desperate to track down Kyung-chun, he went to the hospital to interrogate Tae-zoo, pressuring him to reveal where Kyung-chun might be hiding. To his surprise, Tae-zoo told Soo-hyun that he and Kyung-chun were fundamentally the same kind of person. He added that Kyung-chun was surely plotting revenge against Soo-hyun's family before turning himself in. Since South Korea has no death penalty, once Kyung-chun was in prison, no one could touch him. Panic surged through Soo-hyun. He immediately called the police chief, and every patrol car turned around, racing toward Bo-ram's house. Soo-hyun frantically dialed home, but just as Bo-ram's father reached for the phone, a delivery man's voice called out from the door. The old man glanced at the ringing phone, but ultimately chose to open the door first. The visitor was none other than Kyung-chun. He subjected the old man to inhumane torment, but for Kyung-chun, it still wasn't enough. Flipping through a photo album, he discovered the old man had a daughter. A twisted smile spread across his face. Kyung-chun felt a pang of regret that Bo-ram's younger sister wasn't home at the time. It left him deeply unsatisfied. As he was smashing the old man's forehead with a dumbbell, a sudden noise came from the door. Bo-ram's sister had returned. She stepped inside, calling out for her father repeatedly, but got no response. Sensing something was wrong, she grew uneasy. By the time Soo-hyun arrived, the house was already cordoned off. Fearing for his family's safety, Soo-hyun forced his way inside. All he found was Bo-ram's father beaten to death. It was highly likely that Bo-ram's sister had been taken by Kyung-chun. At that moment, the police chief received a call from Kyung-chun. He issued brazen taunts, proving there were still arrogant killers like him in the world. The chief warned him not to harm Bo-ram's sister, but Kyung-chun acted as if he didn't hear, even demanding that the chief hand the phone to Soo-hyun. He taunted Soo-hyun, asking how he felt and mocking that he'd never defeat Kyung-chun. Meanwhile, the police discovered the sister's body at a dump site. Kyung-chun was already preparing to turn himself in at the station since South Korea lacked the death penalty. Surrendering was his safest escape, but Kyung-chun had underestimated Soo-hyun. In full view of everyone, Soo-hyun abducted him. He then took Kyung-chun to his slaughterhouse and bound him beneath a guillotine. Soo-hyun declared that the most effective revenge was to strike when the enemy was at their peak of pain and fear. Now Soo-hyun's goal was within reach. Kyung-chun was trembling in terror, sobbing and begging for mercy. But for Soo-hyun, it still wasn't enough. He wanted Kyung-chun to feel pain even after death, so he rigged the guillotine, threading a rope through the door handle and stuffing it into Kyung-chun's mouth. If anyone opened the door from outside, Kyung-chun's life would end instantly. Soo-hyun even ensured the perfect people would open it. Kyung-chun's own family, as the voices of his parents and son echoed from outside, Kyung-chun frantically tried to stop them from turning the handle, but with the rope gagging him, his pleas were muffled and unintelligible. Hearing their son's desperate sounds, Kyung-chun's parents rushed to open the door. The moment it swung wide, Hearing the blood-curdling screams from the slaughterhouse, Soo-hyun knew his revenge was complete, yet he felt no joy in his victory. Instead, Soo-hyun broke down in anguished sobs on the road, overwhelmed by the steep price of his vengeance. It had cost him the lives of 2 loved ones, a devastating loss beyond words. And with that, the film draws to a close. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.